I'm just clicking live on the Instagram. I think that went live on the Instagram. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Hello, Marilyn.
Hi, Nikki. It's so nice to see you again.
It's great to see you. Now, I know we've got a little bit of feedback, but we're going to sort that when we get talking. Yeah, welcome to anybody that joins us. I just wanted to chat with a few of our Pup Fest speakers ahead of the festival actually starting on Friday. So thank you to Marilyn for joining me. Do you just want to start off and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Thanks, Nikki. This is so much fun. I love doing these live streams and just picking up on whoever wants to jump in and say, I wonder what that's all about. So I've been working with dogs pretty much my whole life. I was a teacher. That was my, real life career. But all the time I help people with their dogs. That was the thing that I never stopped doing that. And then when I was kind of done with teaching, then I moved on to doing this full time. And for a long time, I was just, basic, good manners, that kind of thing. I always gravitated toward the more professional, positive rather, the more positive part, approaches to training dogs. But 2 or 3 years ago, I started to get a sense that a lot of dogs were like very sensitive, very reactive, very distressed about, the ordinary everyday things that happen, in everyday life. And it seemed like the traditional approach to teaching manners, like the basic sit down, stay, go to your bed, that kind of thing, walk on a loose leash. The dogs were learning those things, but it didn't seem to help them feel less distressed. And uh, most of the caregivers for these dogs wanted them to learn those manners and just kind of assumed that once they learned those, that it would help them cope with everyday life. And it didn't always work out that way. So I kind of said, what is going on here? Why is that not happening? And long story short, after talking to a lot of people, asking them questions about their dogs, I realized that the dogs needed something else first. They needed to understand how to cope emotionally with the things that were going on. And those manners behaviors didn't really help them feel emotionally more secure and better able to cope. So I created my programs for reactive dogs, and that's all I do now, working with people online. And we have found that once we really address what's going on with the dog's inner emotional state, making them feel safe, feel happy, feel content, then they can go on and learn all of those other amazing things, and it helps them. So what we did is just reverse the order. Instead of doing manners behavior and thinking that would help with emotions, we addressed emotions, and we discovered that that opens up all kinds of possibilities for them to learn. So that was a long answer to your question.
No, it's amazing. I mean, obviously things have changed a lot in recent years, but I mean, how did you get into working with dogs in the first place?
Oh my goodness. I think, from the earliest time I can remember, I was always drawn to dogs. There's a picture that I wish I still had. It was an old photograph of me standing next to this um, Irish setter, this beautiful red Irish setter. It was a black and white photograph, but I'm just assuming that because it was an Irish setter, it had to be red. Um, and I don't know how old I was, but I came up to the dog's shoulder height. And that picture is so vivid in my mind. I must have been maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, but the expression on my face is, this is where I want to be. I want to be next to this dog. This is my comfort zone. This is where I love to be. And so, all through my childhood, through my teenage years, I was always really drawn to dogs. And I remember when I got a library card, my very first library card, I went to the library and took out a book about training dogs. So it's something, I think I was born with this um, attraction to dogs, and always had a desire to understand them better, to work with them, to spend time with them. And as it's developed, it's sort of become like a sixth sense, kind of an intuitive thing. When I see a dog, I can kind of get a sense of what they need. And it used to be when I was doing home visits for training, I could walk into someone's home and meet their dog and get a sense right away before the people even described what was going on with the dog, of, what that dog needed, what that dog was feeling. So it's always been like, a natural thing that I just felt totally comfortable with.
Yeah, lovely. Hi, Victoria. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, we've still had slight sound problems, so I'm muting myself in between. So if I sound very, very quiet, that's why. Have you got, just a bit of fun, have you got an epic dog disaster story?
I don't know if it's an epic dog disaster story, but it's a dog that really taught me a lesson. And and the lesson he taught me was, listen to me, pay attention, because I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to get through to you. Pay attention. So this is my dog Chance. He's actually the Papillon that's in my logo. And Chance came to me when he was 10 months old. He was in a home where he just didn't fit in. He just wasn't the right dog. And a friend of mine kind of took him from that home and knew that I wanted a new agility dog. My agility dogs at that time were ready to retire, and I was ready to start a new dog. So I said, this is perfect. And Chance was a little oversized for the breed. Papillons are supposed to be, really small. And he was bigger than most Papillons. I said, well, that's great, because that means that, he'll have that kind of stamina to work in the agility ring. And so I got Chance, brought him home, loved him immediately. It was love at first sight. And I said, great, let's start our agility training. So as we got into agility, Chance just wasn't, he just wasn't doing everything the way I expected him to do. So there was lesson number one. Manage your expectations. Don't go into working with a dog with an agenda thinking it's got to turn out this way. So don't be attached to the outcome. And I said, we're going to do agility. He's going to be, get all of these titles and ribbons and so forth, because he was just a happy, energetic dog. And I figured, why would he not want to do agility? But the thing was, he didn't want to do it. And he didn't do it. And when he was in the agility ring, we went into, I put him into competitions, and we would go in for our turn to do the agility course. And that was his opportunity, because he was off leash. He had no collar, no leash, running around in this big open space. So that was his opportunity to tell me what he had been trying to get across to me. So he would do a couple of the obstacles, and then he would say, okay, I'm done with this now. And he would go off into a corner and start to sniff around. And, the agility classes, the competitions were usually done in these big open livestock arenas. So there were plenty of things for him to smell, because there'd been all kinds of animals around. So he would go off, he would follow a track, and he would start sniffing and picking up odors. And it was embarrassing for me, because I thought, people are thinking, why don't you train your dog before you enter him into a competition? And we had trained. But what he was telling me was, I don't want to do this. But here's what I do want to do. And he was showing me. I don't want to do agility. I don't want to jump over all of these things and go through tunnels and all of this. That's not my thing. What I want to do is use my nose. So what he was doing, it was kind of a disaster at the time. Looking back, it's funny looking back at it, but at the time it didn't feel funny. It felt like, oh no, here we go again. What am I going to do? How am I going to train this dog to do this stuff in a different way than I had already been trying to do? But what he was telling me, I don't feel like doing this. What I feel like doing is using my nose. So I finally got the message. And we started doing nose work, and that he just blossomed. He loved it. Every time we were getting ready to go to a nose work class, I don't know how he figured out that it was his nose work class day, but he knew, and he would be prancing around and dancing and spinning, barking at me like, hurry up, isn't it time to go yet? And he would jump into the car. It was about a 40-minute drive to the class. And as soon as we pulled into the parking lot, he would wake up and he would sit up, start spinning around and making these little whimpering sounds like, oh, we're here. So the lesson I learned from that disaster in the agility ring was pay attention to what your dog is telling you. He knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to use his nose. And I finally got the message. So that was my disaster.
I love that. Well, that's not a disaster, is it? That's just a wonderful learning point. It's not quite like my disaster story, which I'll save for another time.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse, that's for sure. But it was, at the time, it felt like a disaster. Like, oh no, everybody's just saying, what's wrong with that person? Why doesn't she train her dog? That's so embarrassing. But he was, he was telling me, this is not my thing. Wake up, Mom. Pay attention.
Brilliant. I love that. So your session is out on day one, which is Friday, which is not that far away at all.
No.
Give us a little teaser as to what your session is about. What sort of dogs is it going to help?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I now focus primarily on dogs that are distressed or sensitive, or that word reactive, which, we're not too sure exactly what that means, but dogs that are sensitive. So in the course of working with them, I developed a quick little system for people to use to kind of help their dogs before they go into this highly aroused state where they're really so upset they can't pay attention to anything because their nervous system is on high alert. So if you can catch your dog when they're starting to become a little interested, like, oh, what's that over there? And they get a little alert, but they're not like overly distressed. So I developed this system, and it starts with simply acknowledging that your dog has a feeling, acknowledging that your dog is noticing something that might be distressing to him. And it's different from what we've been conditioned to do in the past. We've been conditioned to start to give our dogs instructions like, don't do that. Don't look at that thing over there. Look at me. Sit, giving our dogs a whole lot of instructions about what to do. And instead, which doesn't really help a dog feel safe and confident. It makes them more stressed because you're adding more things on top of what they're trying to cope with, which is that distressing thing over there, whatever it might be. So just acknowledge it and say, oh, I see that you're noticing that, or I see that that's bothering you. Just let them know that you understand. And then secondly, just, kind of make an accommodation for them. Like if the thing is too close, help them to move away. Say, let's go over here a little bit. Let's move away from that thing, and maybe it'll help you to feel better. So it's an invitation to move away. It's not instructing them to perform tasks. It's just inviting them. Would you like to come over here with me? Would you like to go this way instead of that way? And just helping them. And then the another step, which is hard sometimes for people to wrap their heads around, is to accept the dog in front of you right now. Accept how that dog is feeling. If the dog is distressed or upset or worried, just accept that. It doesn't mean that you don't try to help the dog. You just say, oh, okay, you're distressed, so I'm just going to let it be. No, that's not what it means. It means that you have to meet the dog where he is at that moment. You have to go to where the dog is feeling, accept what the dog is feeling, so that you can gently lead him to a better place. So if your dog is feeling upset, you can say, yes, I see that you're noticing that other dog over there that's walking on a leash with his person. I see that that's bothering you. Let's move over here a little bit. Let's go in this direction, because maybe you'll feel more relaxed if you think that you don't have to cope with that. So we're accepting the fact that the dog is feeling distressed, and working with the dog at that point. And then, and then we can take it on to other steps. But it's basically treating the dog the way you would treat a friend or a child. If your friend was upset about something, you probably wouldn't say to that person, sit over there in that chair and look at me and pay attention and don't worry about it. That would be, you just wouldn't do that to your friend. So what I'm saying is to treat the dog the way you would treat your friend. You would say, hey, what's wrong? I see that you're kind of upset. Can I do something for you? Can you, can I make you a cup of tea and, sit down over here? You want to talk about it and feel better? So you're just simply going to where the dog feels, acknowledging that, and then leading them to a place where they can feel better. And there are a lot of details and ways to do that, but it's essentially treating the dog like a friend that you care about, and not like just a little, object that you have to control.
Yeah, brilliant. And I don't want you to give too much away because I want people to watch your session on
I
Friday.
know. I know. I get. I can get carried away. Yeah.
Oh no, that's amazing. I'm really excited for people
But
to
we
see
did
it.
talk about a lot more in the session. We went into a lot more detail.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. So people can still sign up to watch free. It starts on Friday. It runs through Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the format is that each day, that day's lineup worth of speaker sessions and workshops and chats will get released. So if you're signed up to the free guest list, you'll be able to either binge watch that day. You don't have to be online at a specific point in time in order to catch the session. So I want to make it as easy as possible for everybody to see these. And then you'll have until Tuesday night to watch everything for free. And if you want to be able to take your time and go back and watch things over and over, as I tend to do with my aging brain, I definitely need to watch things many times over. If you want to get the VIP pass, that's just £39 so that you can have access to the recordings for life. So there's also a sharing competition. Like, we are trying to get as many people to hear all the speaker sessions as possible. And Marilyn, you've got a book that you have put into the sharing competition. So basically, we have 9 speakers' books that are up for grabs, and I'm just asking people to share something about Pup Fest, either WhatsApp, text, Messenger, on people's social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It does not matter. If people are sharing this, just take a screenshot, and then I can give you details of how to send it in to me. Super, super easy. But each time you share it, you can enter into the prize draw for one of the books. And Marilyn, your book is in there.
yes, it is. And my book is actually about a real disaster, a catastrophe, about a dog, but it has a good ending, so no worries. Um, but it was a real serious thing. The dog nearly died. So but he survived. And that's the story of the book, is how it happened and how the dog survived and all the lessons that I learned from that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Um, so yeah, is there anything else I should have mentioned? I think yeah, this wasn't replacing the session that we've already got, but I just wanted to bring some of the speakers in so that people get to see some of the speakers, and it's always good chatting with you, Marilyn.
Oh, I know. I always love our talks, Niki. Thanks so much for inviting me to do this.
No, it's wonderful. Thank you very much for everybody joining us live. Do tag people in the comments. I can see there's some people doing that, so amazing. Tag people that you think this will help. And yeah, I will let you go, Marilyn. Thank you very much for joining us.
Bye.